Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Crypto News Podcast. We are buzzing as always, still coming in hot from Buenos Aires. DevConnect is this week by the time this episode comes out, and pumped to meet a bunch of you guys here. Let's get into it. Round two for the one and only Jon Trask back on the show today. Had him on a couple years ago, and since then, he and his company have gone absolutely parabolic. This was one of the most interesting EPIs we ever did, as they are tackling a real world use case. When I say real world, I don't just mean tech, I mean tech to actually helping the average and everyday Joes and Josephines, and perhaps even the less than average everyday Joes and Josephines. Can't wait to get into this one. Jon Trask coming on the show again today for round two, CEO and founder of Dimitra, the blockchain-based enterprise system for ag tech. Again, we don't even need to do a bio here, but he is a true blockchain expert, been in the game since 2017, now focused on enhancing farming connectivity globally. Yes, this is all about farming and agricultural tech. Can't wait to get into this. Jon, welcome back to the show, my friend. Pumped to have you on. How you doing this lovely afternoon?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on here again, Matt. It was good talking to you a couple of years ago, and very happy and proud to be back on here. And it's a cold day here today, but lots of sunshine, so pretty happy today.
I love it. Let's get right into it. I want to start with the elevator pitch. I will say though, last time you guys came out, you guys were relatively new, candidly, and my apologies for being a little negative, but there wasn't any buzz on Dimitra last time you came on. There's very, very little. What did you do? You hauled ass for 2 years straight, and now you guys are one of the talks of the town. I'm seeing it all over the timeline. And you told me before the show that you are currently with, I believe the number is 5 million farmers, which is absolutely incredible. Let's jump right into it. Also, shout out Nova Scotia, where you are from. I told you last time I have family from Truro, Nova Scotia. Shout out my aunts and uncles in Truro. That's where my grandpa was from. Super small town on the east coast of Canada, guys. Literally some of the best people in the world, genuinely salt of the earth. And the whole friggin' all of the small towns in Nova Scotia run on farming. Jon's taken that love for farming and absolutely making it happen. So let's get into it. Give us the sort of TLDR, too long didn't read, elevator pitch. What exactly do you and the team do at Dimitra?
Yeah, so Dimitra is an agricultural technology company. We have built, I think, 5 or 6 apps now, and we're building a few more. We've built 2 protocols. The first protocol we launched a couple months ago, and that has been great. But essentially what we do is we look at food and agriculture problems in the world, and we try to build software solutions to help provide data, measure compliance, provide answers or recommendations to farmers and food companies. And we're operating in over 30 countries. I think we're actively selling into over 60 or 70 countries at the moment. And yeah, you mentioned 5 million. We actually have about 6 million customers right now, or farmers, that we analyze their farms and provide data to either the farmer or to their cooperative or a food company. So it's been just exciting onboarding new customers and building new technology and tying all that in with all the AI that we develop and all of the blockchain work that we do. So pretty exciting to dive into that a little further and talk about some of those components.
Let's go chicken and egg. Let's go back to the problem and solution. You're one of the few folks, maybe one of 2 or 3 folks on the show who can actually do a deep dive on farming. And I think you definitely take the cake for the most knowledge on farming. Tell us about the problems of farming and what solutions Dimitra provides to those problems. Because owning a farm and being a farmer, it's an absolute shit show. Pardon my French. It is just incredibly taxing work, not just physically, but mentally as well. You have to deal with the supply chain, tons of variables that are out of your control. It's really not easy, and some really good tech and using the blockchain, putting things in the ledger makes that a lot more, sustainable, efficient, transparent. Tell us about the problems and then jump into the solutions that you guys are providing.
Well, so we have a lot of different solutions to a lot of problems. Let's start with maybe the most recent and maybe the most relevant to the crypto market. There is a law that comes out at the end of this year, end of December, and it's called EUDR, which is a deforestation law. The EU has decided that they won't buy coffee, cocoa, palm oil, soybean, timber cattle products from farms that have deforested. So if somebody chops down their farm in order to grow soybean, they don't want those soybeans in Europe. They want people who are good for the environment, working with nature, and not deforesting. The new law starts, and essentially for large corporations starting on January 1st, every shipment that they bring into Europe needs to be measured, and we evaluate each farm that's in that shipment and produce a compliance certificate. It's called a due diligence statement. And we do that with AI, and we write that data to blockchain. We write it on Solana blockchain. Something interesting with that is all of the fees associated with EUDR come back through the protocol, and 50% of the fees, 50% of the revenue becomes a buyback, and we buy back Dimitra tokens. So we started that with the law coming out back in July. And in July, people started testing. The end user groups started playing with it and testing it. Effective the end of September, we went live with the payment criteria. And since then, we've executed about $700,000 worth of buybacks of Dimitra tokens. And the law isn't even live yet. And we've had, I think, some 50,000 transactions that have occurred that have been written through Solana blockchain. So the adoption by the farming community and by the import-export community is very strong. We've landed some great contracts. We have a contract in Indonesia, and we are the only provider in Indonesia. The Indonesian government, or a corporation owned by the Indonesian government, uses our platform and uses our protocol to clear all Indonesian coffee and cocoa shipments. We have a deal in Kenya with the Kenyan Coffee Association. That's 1.2 million farms, where we measure compliance to this law and provide compliance certificates on the shipments. You look at some of these nations, and just in Indonesia, they will ship 650,000 tons of product next year if they hit their projections using our app, and 100% of that will go through the protocol. In Kenya, you're looking at 30 to 50,000 tons. And so, it's great to take the AI that we built that helps these farmers with their compliance and decentralize that. Now, governments don't pay in crypto, so they'll pay in fiat, but we've set up our treasury, and we've set up bots on the exchanges in order to convert those US dollars that we get paid, or euros, or whatever currency it's in, and buy back the Dimitra tokens. So it's been great, and the community has jumped all over that. Our ambassadors and community members are posting about it, and it's driven some great notoriety in the last 30 days. We're on the top 10 altcoin list for communications, or I guess discussions on X, probably half of the days in the last month. And it's great to be up there in great stead with all of the other top 10 members. I think it's pretty rare to get on that list. So we appreciate that, and we appreciate the community putting the word out and getting all of those reads and clicks and reposts.
I'm happy for you, man. You guys definitely deserve it. One thing that I didn't get to ask you, that we didn't go into a super, super deep dive last time, that I'd love to go into, is more of the data side of Dimitra, specifically like the satellite imagery, the IoT sensors, machine learning models, AI. You talked about how you're using AI. I think that that's one industry that not that many people are talking about, how AI is really going to revolutionize farming as well. Plankton timing, pest management, yield prediction, the whole 9 yards. It's just going to make life a lot easier and more efficient. I'd love if you could give some specific use cases for the folks like me who are so out of the loop when it comes to anything farming related. I'd love to learn more about how you're implementing the AI and the tech to make, farmers' lives a lot easier.
Well, we have a great development team and AI and data science team, and they do a lot of great work. And, the first use case I just talked about, we use satellite imagery, and we look at series of satellite imagery over time and evaluate if trees have been chopped down. We have done that for pretty much all of the global coffee and cocoa and rubber world. So you're talking about 25 countries where we've analyzed, every square foot of the country. And we monitor all of those farms, and we take a geofence, we do the evaluation, and we evaluate whether they've removed any trees or if the change in foliage cover is negligible. We have another project going on where we do yield prediction, and we're doing yield prediction projects on soybean and coffee at the moment. And, we have a customer in South America, and this customer really wants to understand how growing cycles affects their business. So these guys are a very large bank, very large lender. I think they have 150,000 soybean farms that they have loans to, and 50 or 60,000 coffee farms that they give loans to. And essentially one of the next protocols that we have coming out, and we're testing it now, is a yield prediction protocol. So we can look at any individual farm and provide an assessment report on what we think the yield is going to be. So they give us preliminary numbers that they plant this many acres. That gives us some preliminary information. We monitor weather patterns, we monitor farming activities, and AI keeps track of all of this, and it generates a report. And every time the bank needs a report, they can press a button and get 150,000 reports on their farm and sort the data and essentially say, maybe 5% of their loans or 1% of their loans are at risk because there's a drought or a fire or some other natural disaster, or maybe the farmer isn't performing up to the way they were supposed to, their irrigation isn't running, or what, they didn't fertilize this year, or whatever the case may be. But we think that's going to be a big tool, and building that out as our second protocol, and it's actually up and running right now for our test cases, and we'll go live later the year on a couple crops. And we think, commodity traders, lenders, farmers themselves want to know, if I've planted my 5 acres of coffee, what's going to happen to my yield, and how's it going to compare to last year? Am I going to make as much money as I did last year, or are there things I can do that come out in the report that say maybe I'm not irrigating enough? And so we take, I think we have 20 plus satellite reports that we run that help us evaluate the performance of a farm. So we can look at things like moisture and, different, the factors associated with growing, the color and growth and the growth rate of crops, and provide that feedback back to the farmer to help them improve their output, or provide that feedback to their lender if their lender has supplemented or subsidized a loan to plant those acres. And so there's so many great use cases. And, we're running one of the unique ones that we're running right now, and we've started a project in Mexico, which is going great. We have some nations like Kenya and Indonesia and Brazil that have signed up for this, is carbon projects. We can evaluate the biomass of a farm and the trees on a farm. We can look at a number of factors, and this again is becoming another protocol. We have it running with our AI now, but decentralizing it through a protocol adds some more complexity. But the AI allows us to do real evaluations of carbon and carbon storage on a farm, and we can partner and execute projects with a large number of farmers. In Mexico, we've partnered with an area that has 350,000 hectares. We're running our first project on 23,000 hectares. And right now we're seeing that they will store about 1 million to 1.5 million tons of carbon over the next 10 years. And so we've created a project where, we develop the project, we do the measurements, we do the on-the-ground measurements, we get the AI reports, and we get a third-party auditor to come in and audit to make sure that our results are matching their results. And if we match the results, then we can issue the carbon credits to the association that we're working with, which is a large number of farmers. And they can earn, quite a bit of money, a million and a half carbon credits. Right now, they're trading it at $18-19 a ton per carbon credit. And so it's considerable money. We're going to test this over the next year with them and their performance over the next year. And we can expand from those 23,000 hectares to all 350,000 hectares. So it could be a $200 or $300 million project, depending on the performance. And we've had the 1.2 million farms in Kenya have signed up to get the same treatment, and Indonesia wants to go forward with their 3 million farms on that. And we're talking about the Mexico project at, $15-20 million just for the trial project, expanding
Jeez.
to $200 million if we do the full acreage. Adding in Kenya and Indonesia could actually be billions of dollars worth of carbon over the next decade. And so that's running. The testing all went really well, and we've done a full implementation back in August on this in Mexico, and we're adding locations as we go in Brazil, Kenya, and Indonesia, as well as some other countries. And one of the great things is if the customer is a Dimitra customer, they can have access to this. So if we're working with a cooperative wherever in Peru, that's a feature that they get. And Dimitra works, there's no cost to them to do it. There is some effort that they have to do to help us gather the data. We cover all the filing fees and audit fees and things like that. Then there's a revenue share on the project. So Dimitra gets a portion of the revenue, and all of that comes back to the Dimitra token. So our revenue model and our buyback model is 50% of the revenue that we receive flows back through the Dimitra token in the form of buybacks. And then 50% essentially goes right to the operation to cover the costs.
I love it. John, you're on a roll here. We're going to take a quick break. Give a huge shout out to our sponsor of the show. When we get back, we're going to keep buzzing on everything ag tech and Dimitra related. Huge shout out to Prime XPT. In the meantime, we love them. Longtime friends and longtime sponsors of the Crypto News podcast. Prime XPT offers a robust trading system for both beginners and professional traders. Doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a vet, you can easily design and customize your layouts and widgets to best fit your trading style. Prime XPT is also running an exclusive promo for listeners of the Crypto News podcast. Use the promo code CryptoNews50, that's CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Again, that's CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Now back to the show with John. Okay, I'd love to get into sort of the differences, the challenges, the nuances, the unique parts of building a blockchain business that focuses on real world agriculture, supply chain infra, whereas 99.9999999% of blockchain projects focus on high growth consumer apps, focus on DeFi primitives, we'll just call it finance apps. Whereas yours is still finance to a degree because your end goal is to save them money and make their lives easier, you help them achieve more yield. But what are some of the biggest challenges, nuances, just weird things that you've seen that perhaps the average listener wouldn't be cognizant of?
Well, I don't know that the average crypto listener understands the size and scope of the world food chain and agriculture chain. So, there's all kinds of different numbers around this, but one of the accepted numbers is about $13 trillion. Most farmers borrow every year. They borrowed to buy tractors, they borrowed to plant their crops. So there is a lending component of getting into farming to get the capital. It is a capital intensive business. There's a lot of labor. And then there is a trade financing component where if you are growing coffee in Peru, from the day you grow that coffee to the day it arrives at Starbucks, it is probably 90 to 180 days. And a lot of those farmers don't get paid until the product is received at the end consumer. So there's a trade finance where a farmer who sells $100 worth of coffee needs to carry that note for 6 months. And there's a trade financing component where they will take a loan so that they can continue operation of their farm once they pick that and pay that back later after the 6 months is up. So there's two big lending components on the upfront capital component and then on the trade financing piece. Some of the challenges today are a misunderstanding around blockchain, what blockchain is. Farmers are not well versed in what blockchain is. And to be honest, a lot of them don't care about blockchain. They're not for it or against it. They just want an application that helps them solve their problems. Their problems are access to capital. Their problems are access to banking. Their problems are analytics. And when we start to work with a farming group, they're really trying to scope out, can our app help them versus somebody else's app? And there's lots of choice in the market. We have a different model where we work with groups of farmers and we truly try to take a partnership and build technology. One of the challenges is building technology they can use. We're already in 18 languages. We operate in places around the world. In Kenya, where a lot of people speak English, it is everybody learns English in school, but day to day they operate in Swahili. So we had to have a Swahili language and we had to have Swahili trainers. A lot of farmers are older and there is a new generation entering the market. So the new generation is good at using mobile phones and apps. The older generation sometimes struggles with that. It's not to say that everyone struggles with it, but a large percentage of them do. And so there's a little more training, hand-holding, and working with them to get them capable of using the app. And there's different ways we do that. We partner with local universities. We hire in-country trainers. And so in Kenya, we go out to 2 unions every week and we train probably 50 trainers every week. So this week we're at 2 unions. A union is a group of farmers, maybe representing 10,000 to 50,000 farmers. And they are broken up into little societies. And a society might be 200 or 500 farmers. And each society gets a system expert who trains the local farmers, who helps gather the data. Sometimes they do the data collection themselves versus the farmer doing that. And so training and access is a big issue for us. And it's something that we have to consider in every country. With our crypto investors, a lot of our crypto investors don't understand. And they're used to getting on an app and jumping on any app and figuring it out within a couple days. And it's just a different cycle with farming groups. So managing that is a big part of our business. It's funny, when we were landing some of these big contracts earlier this year, we would land a contract for 1 million farms and we would get feedback that, we have 1 million farms on the app. Well, we don't have 1 million farms on the app. We have a contract for 1 million farms and we have to go train those people and bring on 1,000 or 5,000 trainers to go train 1 million people.
Gotcha.
And then those 1 million people need to go spend the next 6 months training. And so adoption isn't $1 million contract and $1 million of revenue. It's $1 million contract. And then you have to cycle up as you're training the groups of farmers. The nice thing is on carbon contracts, all carbon contracts that we're doing are 10-year contracts. So we're creating a 10-year relationship with those farmers. Our EUDR contracts tend to be 3 or 5 years. And so we're really working with them for a long period of time. And so, $1 million contract, we may see $500,000 in revenue in the first year because the people who are really excited about it jump on board. But because there's a law associated with it, the farmers have no choice but to comply. So they have to comply at a certain point. And so the EUDR said they're coming out in January, but they're really not going to start penalizing people for non-compliance until July. And so there's a learning period that farmers have to get on board, to get trained. And then by the end of July, I guess early July, they need to be reporting everything. Today, to get their shipment in Europe, they have to report. And so if you're in Peru and you're putting a shipment of coffee on a boat to go to Germany, even if you packed it today, it's not going to be in Germany by January 1st. So all of those shipments need to comply today. Now, if they made a mistake, what the EU is saying is they're not going to slap their fingers for it. They're going to tell them they made a mistake and the next shipment needs to be better, because the penalties are quite large. The penalty if you were selling to Starbucks and you did it wrong and Starbucks allowed you to do it wrong is 4% of Starbucks gross revenue. And,
Wow.
And so imagine taking 4% of every dollar that Starbucks sells, and that's the penalty that Starbucks could receive. Now, they won't do that initially, but for people who are constantly non-compliant, the penalties will get quite harsh over time, I believe.
Yeah, it's up.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's
good to know.
It's pretty exciting working with those farmers and getting them on board. And what it does is it brings a new group of people to crypto. They get to learn about who we are. At the start, they don't particularly have a lot of interest in crypto, but we see more and more of them becoming interested. And like I said, we're 6 million farmers now. A very large portion of those will become crypto users in the future. And so we get questions, or I get questions when I travel about the Dimitra token and how it works, and other tokens and how they work, and exchanges, because a lot of these folks have never really looked into crypto before. So it's a big avenue for new crypto users and potentially millions of them. There's 500-600 million small farmers in the world that we hope to get a big chunk of them on. And at this year's growth rate, I mean, I think we're easily 10 million plus users within the next year.
I love it.
And continuing to grow.
Jon, you guys are doing God's work. Keep cooking. Any news before we let you go here? I mean, you guys are, again, Twitter's, you've been on fire on crypto Twitter, crypto X recently. Your episode's going to air in 6 days on the 18th. Any news on the 17th, excuse me, any news before we let you go today?
We have a couple big contracts that we'll see some news coming out in the next few weeks. We just signed a contract in Nicaragua. So that's our first Nicaraguan farming group. We've just signed another contract in Mexico with a group of coffee farmers. I think if you go to our X account and look at Dimitra Tech, or if you do a search on, $DMTR, all of our regional directors, and there's about 15 directors we have, they post about their projects. So they'll take images or video of their farms, they'll make a little post, and each of them post a couple times a month. And that's one of the requirements. So there's probably 30 new project posts or project updates that come out on X every month. And we try to replicate that on our Telegram account, Dimitra Tech. And then, I don't know, last year we have a PR company that works for us and talks to media. And I think last year we had almost 1,000 articles written about us by global media.
Yeah.
And I would expect that we're above that this year. We try to do podcasts. We try to keep people informed of what's going on. And we've just had some recent wins. There's a new one out. Carlotta, who's our director of ESG, just represented us at the World Food Forum with the United Nations. United Nations is one of our customers, and there's a great video that the UN has produced about our project in Suriname. This project's going to continue to evolve and get expanded around the world into other operations, UN operations, and so there'll be some more posts about that. So lots going on, and I think the biggest news is just follow us on X and learn more and more about the company. Reach out to us, and we hope to do more podcasts in the future and help answer questions. So it's exciting. Everything's exciting that's going on right now. We're not getting as much sleep as we'd like, but boy, it's fun.
What an end to the show. Folks, wouldn't that be with Jon Trask from one and only Dimitra, CEO and founder of Dimitra. Just a great episode. As always, everything on blockchain tech for farming and agriculture. Huge shout out to John and the team for making this happen. If you guys enjoyed this one, I hope you did. Please do subscribe, hammer that like button. It would mean the world to my team and I, to my team. I love you. Thank you for everything. To the listeners, love you guys as well. And as always, keep on growing those bags, keep on hustling and bustling, and above all else, keep on saying happy, healthy, and wealthy. Love you guys, and see you on the next one. Ciao.